Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Wednesday, October 30th. That's right, just before Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody. Hope you're enjoying a special playoff edition Wednesday show with Halloween on Thursday and the game on Friday. Seems better to line this up. The LA Galaxy getting ready to play on Friday. Game number 2 of the first round, Colorado Rapids. LA Galaxy at Dick's Sporting Goods Park there in Commerce, Colorado. Galaxy 5-0 winners in that first game. A lot to live up to for the Galaxy coming into that game against Colorado. So some stuff to talk about. We're going to get you through Greg Vanney's comments today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the playoff games that have happened, where the Galaxy sit, and all of that as well. To help me do that, we're glad to have him stepping in for the Hammer tonight. It is Alex El Nino Ruiz. Alex, how you doing, bud?
Good. Glad to be back on the podcast. Talk some LA Galaxy soccer. I mean, the weather's cold. There's a breeze in that air. You know, it feels good. I mean, it's totally amazing time right now for MLS Cup playoffs. There totally isn't an international break in the middle of it. But yeah, it's definitely the best time of year for me, for sure.
We're just going to ignore that part, right? That whole international. No, it's crazy to think. By the way, we're also, side-eyeing the Dodgers game right now, too. So I know that a lot of people in our live show probably have chosen to watch the Dodgers. Don't blame you at all, 100%. So we're there with you as we watch the Dodgers try to come back. The last we saw, they were losing by a run. But I'm sure the chat room will keep us updated if we need to do that. And so it'll be a good time. Here's the thing, though, Alex. This feels like it feels really drawn out for everything. I mean, not only just the first game, but then there's a whole week between the next game, basically. A Saturday game, then a Friday game. It'll go again for another Saturday game if they have to return for the third game, which we'll talk about. Maybe they get there, maybe they don't. We've gotten through every single round now of that, every single game of the first round. So we've seen all the teams play. It just feels like this is taking forever. And any momentum that the LA Galaxy had, any momentum that the league had going into the playoffs, and there felt like after decision day there was momentum behind it. You had the wild card games that led into it. You had the first games. Now you're all the way through. You felt like it feels like it's now grinding to a halt. And I don't know if the Galaxy feel that way and other teams feel that way, but that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, it's so slow, and I think part of the reason why is we've become so accustomed to the Saturday night games, right? Wednesday or Saturday night. They're having one game on Friday, one game on Saturday, and then 2 games the following days. It's just so weird and consistent, and I feel like that's why it's kind of, it's like throwing a curveball at us. We've been so used to this consistent schedule that, Apple has been wanting to establish, right? And then now, we're seeing the games kind of be here and there. Again, like we just mentioned, the international break. So, yeah, this playoffs definitely feel like, there's too much time in between the action. I think everybody, even the players, fans, even us as media, we just want to see them get into it. And I think, that's going to be key for the LA Galaxy right here. It's just trying to contain themselves, trying to stay disciplined during this time where, let's be honest, it's really weird to watch playoff soccer right now.
We got to talk to Greg Vanney today, so we'll be, I'm sure, chiming in with different things. He said it was interesting. They talked about watching tape of the 5-0 game, Alex, and it was sort of like one of those things is like, hey, when we watch tape, it's to find things that are wrong, right? Like we're not watching yes, we will acknowledge sort of the good things that happened, but more it was like, hey, be prepared, because the I think Greg sort of mentioned, he said at this time of year to have a 5-0 win, he goes, that's unusual. He goes, you shouldn't be counting on that's going to be the same thing whenever you go to Colorado. And so I think the Galaxy really have to guard against that. He also mentioned the Houston game. He goes, I trust these guys to realize basically that Houston was not too long ago, and you can see how quickly that things can end. So as long as they keep that mentality, he thinks they'll do pretty well against Colorado and all those fun things. We have a $5 super chat from Esteban. Gonna watch tomorrow, but thanks for a picture at halftime on Saturday. Love the pod. Thanks, Esteban. We appreciate it. Again, still, like I said, I understand. Dodgers game going on. There's basketball. There's soccer. There's hockey. There's everything right now. So we're being pulled in a lot of different directions, but at least want to get you ready for this game on Friday. Here's the interesting thing, though, Alex. We've now looked at everything. We've seen all the first round games. We saw the wild card games that got a little crazy. We watched all the games through Friday and Saturday with Miami winning, the Galaxy winning, Orlando 2-0 over Charlotte. You had LAFC who had a little scare there for a little bit, 2-1 over Vancouver, certainly within the wheelhouse there. Then we got into the Monday and Tuesday night games as well. We get into Cincinnati 1-0 winners over New York City. We can talk about that game a little bit. Seattle 0-0, Seattle advancing, moving forward and winning the game on penalty kicks 5-4 over Houston. That was a battle and a half between those two. And then it came to Tuesday. In all of these games so far, Alex, we've had the higher seed, the hosting team, win the games. And everybody was sort of waiting for perhaps that one little change that was going to hit. All right. And then we look at it now. It is that Tuesday games. Both of them ended up in upsets. Now, you can argue whether or not a 6-3 is a big upset, but whenever you have an away team winning, whether that's on penalty kicks or not, that's an upset, and that's the part of the bracket that the Galaxy are watching as well. So Columbus, the Columbus Crew, widely accepted as maybe the best team in Major League Soccer, maybe the second best behind Miami, go host the New York Red Bulls, Alex, and lose 1-0. This felt like a smash and grab a little bit, but at the same time, something feels off about Columbus. And I don't know what it is yet, and I've watched some of their games this year, but I really was intently watching that game. They did not seem to have that offensive end point that is really going to get them. Same with like Cincinnati. When we look at Cincinnati and what they were able to do, they were able to win a game, but 1-0 over New York City, but they didn't feel like the dangerous team that everybody sort of expected to them. Maybe there's some of that East Coast, that the East is a little bit better than the West, but when we go back to Columbus, something doesn't seem right with Columbus, and that has effects for the Galaxy right now, as Columbus is one of the teams that could host MLS Cup over the Galaxy, and should they get upset, Alex, that would knock them out of the tournament now. They have to go and play for their lives on the road, which is something the Galaxy and almost every other team have avoided so far.
Yeah, the one interesting thing about the New York and Columbus matchup is that these two teams played each other on decision day, right? So they're technically, they could play up to 4 games against each other, which is weird. I mean, Columbus was missing Diego Rossi, so not necessarily having their full firepower attack on the night, but nonetheless, I mean, it's crazy to think that they're the beneficiaries of this 3-game series. You'd expect Columbus to probably get the job done, but hey, that's MLS, that's playoffs where anything can happen. And like you mentioned, Josh, looking at all these results, I mean, we were kind of talking about it in the pregame or pre-show thing. The Galaxy really much, and the upper echelon of performances this playoff so far, and I think that's something to really take if you're the LA Galaxy, something to take pride in and something to take note for sure, because obviously you're not going to win every single game 5-0, but the fact you're able to kind of set the tone like that is so impressive.
It is, and as Eric always says, we always talk about it's peaking at the right time. Well, I mean, let's hope that it's not the high mark for the Galaxy, right? That's something that you sort of have to guard against. But if we go into the brackets and look at the brackets right now, the Galaxy having to play that RSL side of things, RSL and Minnesota, and knowing that Minnesota is now leading in that, regardless of who wins that, if the Galaxy advance, they would have to play at Dignity Health Sports Park in a single elimination game. But watching that side, I don't think RSL or Minnesota are the teams that you're sort of looking at saying, oh, those are upper echelon teams in Major League Soccer right now. That doesn't feel that way. Seattle and Houston, watching that game and what they were able to do in that game doesn't feel like it's upper echelon, sort of attacking for the Galaxy. You feel like there's something there for them, in how they play. But they don't feel like they're the ones who are going to cause any problems. And I think if you're looking for an LAFC upset, you'd probably want Houston to advance, and Houston, is behind in that game. But having said that, it doesn't feel like that's where the game changers are. We can go over to Orlando, is maybe right now looks like maybe it's the strongest team out of the East. Just looking at how everything was sort of played out and the way things are going. So maybe Orlando is that dark horse in the East that's sort of coming into things. Cincinnati doesn't look themselves. New York City didn't look dangerous at a lot of things. Columbus looked outright confused, and the Rossi missing is certainly a huge big part of that on their offensive side. So the fact that we can report tonight that Greg Vanney said everybody should be available, he means besides Caceres, but everybody else will be available. That again, it puts the LA Galaxy in an advantageous situation, right? Where they are the ones who are sort of have the upper hand with some of these things. So I don't know. To me, it's a super interesting look at what the Galaxy have to face. I mean, going in the Western Conference right now, if you had to rank them just by the way that they finished so far, you'd probably put the Galaxy and then. Who had it was probably LAFC had the second best, game. And I didn't think that was very convincing. I thought that there's a whole cluster of Western Conference teams you could probably just group together in that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Houston and Seattle game, right? Two teams, low scoring, great defenses. So obviously no surprise they went to penalties in a 0-0 draw. Real Salt Lake and Minnesota, Salt Lake have very much kind of calmed their firepower compared to earlier in the year.
Right.
Minnesota kind of just sat back and were like, all right, just you guys try to beat us. Go to penalty shootout. And yeah, the LAFC Vancouver game, it felt like maybe LAFC could have played a little bit better considering, sure, Vancouver did blow the park out of Portland, but I mean, Vancouver's still a team that has all its flaws and places to be exploited at. But yeah, really good performance from the LA Galaxy, setting the tone. I mean, the offense looked so good that night. The patterns of play, the way the players just so easily could probably move in those areas with the ball. They already knew where to position themselves. It just felt so good. It felt like the Galaxy were like a hot knife and the Colorado Rapids were just butter, right? They just went right through them. And I think that's so good for the LA Galaxy side because, again, obviously coming off that decision day heartbreak, they do need that boost of confidence. They do need that kind of spark again. And I think the Galaxy have definitely got that.
Yeah, it feels like that. The other thing that I think we have to guard against, and I don't think we'd be doing our job if we didn't, is to say that the Rapids are a good matchup for the Galaxy too, right? So it's whenever you look at things and you can sort of put it out. I was reading Matt Doyle's piece today and sort of going through what he saw, and he said, this is the first time maybe that he thought that LAFC and Vancouver belonged on the same field together, right? Which I don't know if that means LAFC has sort of pulled back a little bit, Vancouver has jumped forward, but regardless, he says that's actually a match to watch. And then he looks at the Colorado Rapids and missing Cole Bassett, missing Jordy Mihalovic. Greg Vanney talked a little bit about today. It's like, do you think those guys will be available? If they can walk, they'll play, right? Like it's one of those. This is the do or die game, Alex, right?
Yeah, and look, obviously, I think you have to mention that caveat with that performance. Colorado missing two of their best players, but at the same time, you also got to acknowledge, hey, the Galaxy didn't play down to the level of their competition. They didn't kind of stumble or get overconfident in that situation. They took care of business, and yes, people are going to mention they didn't have that, like I said, but you really got to respect the Galaxy weren't playing any games, and that's the Galaxy people want to see, that they're serious, that they're contenders, and that they're not going to play around to get another trophy.
We are getting breaking news right now. Dodgers have taken the lead 7-6 over the Yankees. I mean, we're doing this as a live pod, and I think we're both interested in sort of watching that game, so we've been sort of paying attention. So by no means is this a Dodgers podcast, but just knowing that other people were watching this, know that as we're doing the pod, we're watching and trying to keep track of everything as well. So a big deal there, and that is now in the top of the eighth with 2 outs. Yeah, so that's getting close there too. Could be a champion. We talked about who would lose first in Los Angeles. It ended up being the Lakers, I think, who lost first.
That night, I think, that Monday night.
Yeah, it was.
You guys were talking about it in the corner of the Galaxy curse struck.
That's right. I think that was the Phoenix game, right? And I almost came back for that. So anyway, we're watching that as well. But here's the thing, and it was funny because Greg Vanney sort of talked about it after the game against the Rapids on Saturday. He said, it's exciting for us to be in Los Angeles with all of this Los Angeles sportsdom going on, right? You have the Clippers, the Lakers, you have the Kings, you have the Dodgers, right? You have all of these teams that are right on top of each other. You have LAFC and the Galaxy. Everybody's sort of there. it does sort of create this other atmosphere in Los Angeles right now, and certainly winning a World Series. I always joke with people. People always ask, like, what kind of sports town is Los Angeles? Like, oh, it's a Dodgers town. It always has been, always will be. The Lakers, it's Dodgers and Lakers, and probably in that order, right? Dodgers and Lakers, although very big, both of them. Dodgers and Lakers, and then everything else after that is pretty much how it goes, right? Rams are playing, Chargers are playing, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of sports going on, but this is a Dodgers town. So if they were able to do something, that sort of, to me, Alex, it lifts. I know this is one of those weird things where you're saying there's no way a World Series for the Dodgers could have any effect on the Galaxy, and I'm here to tell you that it could. You see them do it. You see them get the accomplishments, that type of thing, and all of a sudden you believe that things are going to line up for the Galaxy, which they're going to need a little bit of help here as they continue down, especially looking at this. But can we say that the Galaxy have looked the best out of anybody in the first round, and does that equate to anything? I think you pointed out Houston, Seattle, both defensive sides, so it's probably no big surprise, and maybe that's unfair to sort of look at them the way they are. Those are teams that are going to survive into the playoffs because of their really tight defense. But the Galaxy didn't allow a shot on goal. Only allowed one shot. Greg Vanney talked about it today. Only allowed one shot from like 30 yards out. He goes, John McCarthy had a bad FOTMOB rating because basically he didn't have to do anything all night. And I was like,
he was basically suffering from success in a way.
He was. Didn't have to do anything, right? So looking at that, is there, I think Greg was trying to answer that today, but is there this worry of overconfidence going into Colorado? Or do the Galaxy, is this team mature enough? Are they smart enough to realize Houston could happen all over again in Colorado if they're not paying attention?
Yeah, that's the thing, Josh. Look, Greg Vanney in a couple of pressers ago kind of talked like, hey, sometimes this team can have that arrogance to them, right? Where we see them try the flicks. We see them try to play the pretty tiki-taka, those like no-look passes, right? We've seen that from the LA Galaxy team when they're feeling themselves. But right now you're in the playoffs. You're in a, sure, the Galaxy can't get eliminated tomorrow night. But, hey, you still want to at least be able to put your stamp on the game. You want to be able to, kill off the opponent. And that's the other aspect of this is, can the LA Galaxy show their killer instinct to end the series, to not have any doubts of, hey, they still have a chance to win and beat us and knock us out? Because you just felt the feeling in a mini way, like in a fun-sized version of elimination on decision day. It didn't obviously mean much when it came to the Galaxy's, elimination from the playoffs. But, it's still a demoralizing loss. And I think this team really needs to show that maturity. I think if you can see an LA Galaxy that's focused, that, doesn't seem too arrogant to start the game. Not saying they always do, but we've seen that at times with this team where they can be a little arrogant, and that can be the fall of the team, especially considering, they tend to be caught in transition often. There's times where, they're not in the right places at the right time. And look, hitting to Colorado and the altitude, the last game in Colorado, the atmosphere seemed kind of dead. You're in a playoff game. You're kind of expecting it's going to be a little bit more lively. The crowd's going to be more of a factor. The elements in this playoff game, much different from the regular season game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it feels that way a whole bunch. I was looking up weather for the game as well, just because that's gonna certainly play into everything. But on Friday night, the low is about 29 or something like that. This is a little bit further. I have my Highlands Ranch, which is where I visit most of the time. I go to Colorado. It's about 29 degrees, but the high is 60. So I don't think it's going to be like super biting cold or anything like that. It'll probably get cold towards the end of the game and do all that sort of fun stuff. But whenever you look at kickoff, which is supposed to be about 7:30, it's going to be about 48, 45 degrees. That's not horrible in anything that's happening, but it is something that everybody has to watch. It is something that you have to pay attention to. The altitude, the Galaxy are going to be traveling tomorrow morning, so a Thursday morning, Halloween morning departure. They will train in Denver in the afternoon, so whenever they get there, they'll do. Listen, it's a walkthrough day. All right, they do a little running. They'll be like, okay, this feels good, and then they're gonna walk through their stuff, and then they're hitting the hotel. They're going to bed, and they got stuff to do in the morning. Usually, they get out and do like walks and that type of thing. Everybody has their own routine for whenever they're in the hotel, but they'll have meals together. They'll get ready and head to the stadium, and then they'll get to play there. So let's go over some of Greg Vanney's just discussions that we've had today with him. We got to talk to Amiro Garces, which is one of the things. That's the first time we've really gotten to talk to him since he joined the LA Galaxy. So we got to talk a little bit about how comfortable he's feeling. He mentioned the language barrier a little bit being something that he's struggled with, but otherwise he says he feels at home. He feels like everybody's welcoming. Greg Vanney talked a little bit about him and Will and sort of the long-term plan for not just this year, but for next year for Amiro Garces. So that was good. The big question on Garces, though, was the injury, right? And it looked like it was a hamstring or something like that whenever he went down, but he's telling us that it's a little bit of a back issue, right?
Yeah, so during the presser, Amiro was asked about, how he's feeling. Obviously, we've seen him kind of play this year, but injuries have kind of limited that, how much he's on the pitch. And he said that for, a good portion, maybe the last month or two, that back injury has kind of been a setback for him, but he's been working really closely with the medical staff, with the staff at the LA Galaxy, and he feels much better now in the playoffs. And I think that's important because the one thing that you want out of Amiro is that physicality and that physical presence and athleticism that he has, because the Galaxy don't really have center backs like that. Maya Yoshida, obviously not very athletic, very veteran guy. Jalen Neal, he's young, but he doesn't just have that same burst of acceleration,
right? Or
even that just presence, like big physical body presence that Amiro Garces has. So you kind of really do need that. It's kind of the yin yang right there, where you have an older player who has a bit more IQ, knows how to position himself, and a younger guy who's able to track down balls, track down any runner. But obviously we've seen him be very aggressive at times and give up some fouls pretty cheaply. So you're kind of hoping that Amiro Garces, obviously he's a starter now, seems very apparent from Greg Vanney's selections over the past couple of weeks. But yeah, you're hoping he stays healthy. You're hoping that in this game in Colorado, continues to be an X factor, because they have some speedy guys. Rafael Navarro, who's a really mobile striker. I mean, Kevin Cabral, he's a guy that the Colorado is going to look to feed in transition. So Amiro Garces is a very key guy, and I call him, like, this is my nickname for him, the Minister of Defense, because I think he's just like the perfect defender. Like, he's the perfect modern guy where he can cover everything. He's big, he's strong, like, he's not afraid to get in there, and he'll take care of it. So Minister of Defense, Amiro Garces.
He is that guy, though, and Greg said how they've asked him to be a little bit more to attack a little bit higher up the field whenever he's defending, so be a little bit more aggressive, which is funny because I'm sure lots of us would sit here and say, oh, sometimes he's too aggressive. No, they're not worried about that. They'll take the too aggressive, it feels like, but they also want him to be smart with what he's able to do. And so for Garces, it is about, trying to find that happy balance, and I think he found it against Colorado. I mean, listen, everything went right against Colorado. It's almost not worth talking about the game. I think Vanney was sort of in that same sort of mindset, which was like, that game doesn't matter. Like, it was 5-0. Yeah. One is, it really doesn't in this format. Yes. It absolutely matters nothing. The only important thing was that you got the win. But the other part about it is that was, all the stars aligned, and Colorado played like crap. Let's be very clear. Colorado did not. Yes, the Galaxy took away a lot of what the Rapids were doing, but I don't know. I don't know what else they can do. So they're just not the same. I was reading Matt Doyle's piece, and he was talking about Colorado, and he goes, I don't know what Armas can do to throw a wrinkle into things. Greg Vanney talking a little bit about what he expected from the Rapids, and he was like, listen, they're going to be more aggressive, right? He goes, I don't think they're going to. He goes, they're either going to be more aggressive because they want to get on the front foot, they want to try to score early, they want to try to gain some momentum. He goes, or they're going to sit back and try to catch us on the counter. He goes, for me, I expect them to be like aggressive, right? And Greg also talking about, you have to expect the best version of them when you go. He goes, and then you can adjust from there back. But if you're not expecting, Mihalovic, if you're not expecting Cole Bassett, if you're not expecting those guys to play, and then something comes up, you are expecting those. You're telling everybody those guys are playing. Get ready. They're going to be coming out hot. Whenever a wounded animal has their back up against the wall, they are dangerous. Colorado will be dangerous. Colorado will
fight to the death.
Yeah. There's zero chance that they're going to have 0 shots on goal again, right? Like, there's no way. In fact, that would be a great bet. If Vegas would take it, it'd be like 1,000 to 1 that they wouldn't have it again. It's not going to happen. Colorado will be a much better team, and that's regardless of who plays for them. They're just going to be better. They're at their home. They're expecting that there are going to be a lot of fans. They're going to have some card tricks going, because I saw some of the tweets from Colorado saying, get there early, get in your seats. You're going to be under the burgundy and blue that they sort of have, and they're going to do it. So they're trying to create a playoff atmosphere. In favor of that for the Galaxy is, 1, that Colorado sometimes has trouble drawing fans, 2, that it's on a Friday night. after Halloween, but I expect that atmosphere will be better.
I mean, this is what MLS wanted, right? Where they wanted the other team to host a playoff game, and that's the opportunity. And look, Colorado, we've talked about it before on a podcast. I know I've talked about it and tweeted about it. But the LA Galaxy, aside from their win a couple weeks ago, generally don't have a good record in Colorado.
Right.
They've lost most of their games. They've been outscored in Colorado by a pretty high margin if you exclude the last match. So, yeah, look, the Galaxy definitely have the confidence, but this is a place that has tortured the LA Galaxy that, the last game in the Bruce Arena era, right, was in Colorado. And so this is a place historically that the Galaxy just don't have that good juju going towards them. So while there's a bunch of overconfidence, I think, in between fans and everybody else about the LA Galaxy, this can definitely still be a trap game. I mean, like you said, Josh, this is a wounded animal that's going to fight to the death to stay alive, to have one more shot. I mean, they don't even have to score a goal, and they can still advance in this series.
Right.
And that's the thing about it. Like, if they're going to get into the dark arts, if they're going to, try to sit behind the ball for most of the game, they're going to do things to get a result, to get a win. It's going to be ugly, I bet. It's probably not going to be the prettiest game of soccer, but that's the hurdle the LA Galaxy team has to go through in order to advance. And look, let's be honest. I think this is going to be a very close game. I wouldn't be surprised if, this is a 1-1, this goes to penalties. It'll be close for sure, but it's going to be the complete 180 from the last match at Dignity Health Sports Park.
There were some frustrated players on the LA Galaxy as well. They were talking about Gabriel Pec, who got 2 assists but didn't have a goal, right? And sort of wanted that goal. We've seen it from Joseph Paintsil trying to get a goal, trying to get on the board. Greg Vanney addressed that a little bit. He said, hey, when strikers and guys who score goals realize that there are goals in this game to play, that you can score goals, that you can do things, then they're going to want to do that, right? Like once they smell blood in the water, they're like sharks, right? Smell blood in the water, they want to attack, right? And so you're seeing that. Greg said that he reminded everybody, and not just Pec, but it was certainly, I think, pointed more at Pec, that to make the best decision and the best pass for the team, for the situation, right? He goes, because Greg said, I thought a couple of times he forced some shots because he was like, I can score from here. Here's the deal, though. Everybody knows that Gabriel Pec, who could possibly be the player of the year for the LA Galaxy, right? Everybody knows that Gabriel Pec is going to be one of those guys that gets everything going. He may, in this playoffs, Alex, end up being the assist guy. He may be the dummy that's in there because everybody knows that they like to play through Pec and that he's scored a lot of goals for them with their play through there. I mean, this is the one thing I'll say in sort of my defense. I believe that Riqui Puig is the player of the year for the LA Galaxy. That's been my belief, and I understand why people pick Pec, but I think that Riqui still pulls most of the strings. The thing about Riqui is it's usually harder to shut him down. And I think Pec is going to feel the fact that they are going to have to that he's going to get a lot more attention in these games. From here on out, they are going to have game plans particularly marked up to make sure that Gabriel Pec doesn't score, which means that guys like Joseph Paintsil, if you can get him going, and we were talking about this before we started the show, if you could get Joseph Paintsil going, it's like beating the final boss at the end of the game. This is where you could open everything else up. This is where the Galaxy reached that next level. You want to know if the LA Galaxy are MLS Cup contenders? I still have questions. I think in general they are. You can make it, but down to the technicality, how good can they be? How good can everything happen? It requires, if you want to be that next level, if you want to be the, was it the 2017 Toronto team that won the treble? If you want to be that team, Joseph Paintsil has to score goals. He has to be dangerous, and he has to be involved, and he has to feel confident, and he has to be ready to go. Riqui Puig needs to score goals. Gabriel Pec needs to score goals. Joveljic needs to score goals. They did through this entire season, so it's not like they haven't done it. And Joseph Paintsil, I think, has 10 goals, 10 assists or something like that. It's not a small number, whatever it is. I think 20 combined, plus or minus. But that is crazy to me that if you could get Joseph Paintsil running, knowing that everybody is trying to guard Gabriel Pec, Alex, that to me feels like you're unlocking a whole different level. That's a different LA Galaxy team, and I think they have the ability to do that in these playoffs, especially against Colorado, who is going to have to shift over and put more pressure on Pec because Pec is where the danger is, right? Pec and Puig, they're going to try to guard that sort of left side of the defense for them. Left to middle, they're going to guard that, which means guys like Mark Delgado, the second runs coming from somebody like Marco Ruiz, the late run from Joseph Paintsil coming in on the left-hand side, or even Paintsil leading out those charges and those attacks, really seem like it's the way that the Galaxy still have. That's what I'm waiting. They need to learn that. They learned that, Alex, and I'm willing to say that they could be they might be the best team in Major League Soccer, and that includes over Miami.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like we've never, or I don't think there's been a moment all year long, you can correct me if I'm wrong, where like all four of the front four are like firing at the same time. Feels like one guy's hot, one guy might be cold, right? If all four can get firing on all cylinders, the Galaxy are going to be like in a new gear right there. You're talking about like Inter Miami level of offense. I mean, they're close to that already, but maybe better than that, which is crazy to talk about. But yeah, Joseph Paintsil for me, a guy who definitely needs to get going. Been very much hot and cold the second half of the year. No surprise. I mean, he's played over 65 games all season long. Hasn't really had a break. And the only time he's had a break, he was injured, but he was working his way to come back here, right?
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of that fatigue, both mental and physical, that, it's still the hurdle for him. But look, Joseph Paintsil, if he can find just an ounce of that form that he had to start the year, but we're all saying this guy is, MVP type quality, where he's the guy who could take the league by storm. If he could just find an ounce of that for the rest of the playoffs, the Galaxy attack can be so much better. And obviously, the Galaxy defense is a topic of conversation, but with all four guys scoring at the same time, helping each other out on the offense, it's like you have that confidence the Galaxy can outscore their opponents no matter what situation they're in.
Well, to go a little focus on that defense again, we had John Nelson on Monday night. He talked a little bit about Joseph Paintsil coming back and playing defense. We've seen Ricky Puig come back and play defense. We saw finally it happens. By the way, that's what actually gets said in the press box whenever we see him like run back. By the way, we're like, oh, look who's playing defense. Like, it's crazy. But honestly,
yes, I'm the one telling everyone that.
Yeah, right. I know. The crazy thing to me though is that is what good playoff teams do, is they shift in the playoffs to be better defensively. They want to make sure they're defensively sound. If the Galaxy can continue that level of understanding, and you hope that a lot of times like games like that are flukes, wherever you have the no shots on goal, that type of thing. You can call it a fluke because a lot of things have to line up, because it's usually not too hard to take at least one half-hearted shot at the goal. And in order for the Galaxy to sort of trap the Colorado Rapids out of that, it was a lot of work, but also the Rapids were fairly toothless in attack, right? So there was some things going on that. But if you can find that the Galaxy can play that defense and make that defensive shift in the playoffs, then again, you're talking about a team that I think is a real MLS Cup contender. Right now, if I'm ranking it in terms of the teams that I saw and sort of the way it is, I'm going to do something. I'm going to argue against myself. I'm going to say Miami's one. And the only reason I'm saying Miami's one is because I don't think they played that well. I think they're a defensive liability. They didn't play defense as well. I think Busquets is a problem where they're playing him right now. I think that here's the problem with Miami. They need like 10 seconds and half a yard to score a goal, right? So you can't say, so regardless of what happens, they don't have to play well to win, as they showed throughout the entire season. It didn't matter where they were playing, whether that was home or away. So for me, I'll take Miami as probably the top, even though I think in this particular game, they weren't like crazy good. They weren't a team where you were like, oh man, this team is just unbeatable. The only team that anybody said, oh man, was whenever they were watching the Galaxy play the Rapids. And again, that could be a matchup thing. So for me, I would say it's Miami 1. I would say it's the Galaxy 2. I think it's LAFC 3 in terms of how they played. And then maybe it's Orlando, because I just did not feel a lot of the rest of those in some of this. So seeing the Red Bulls upset Columbus, I'm not ready to say the Red Bulls or anything. Certainly it was a smash and grab. Cincinnati to me is maybe down below Seattle, Houston, or even RSL Minnesota. I just didn't believe in that team, and they haven't looked right for most of the year. So it's one of those where they're really good, they played well, but do they have what it needs? To me, a lot of these teams are missing that finishing option, and the Galaxy have like 4 finishing options and probably more than that. So offensively, the Galaxy have one of the best offenses in the league. We knew that already. This first game just proved that again. But if the Galaxy can make that shift defensively to play like they did, then now you're talking about something. Now, if they learn how to play defense in the playoffs, Alex, it's the perfect time to learn how to play defense.
Exactly, right? I mean, you have guys like Ricky Puig who have very much been, I'd say, lazy on the defensive end, and now you see him track back. Like I remember a couple weeks ago, right? Maya Yoshida brought that up in the presser, and we all just started laughing because, we noticed it. It's glad to see that, Maya is definitely letting Ricky know about that. Because look, the defense is, like players have said, it's not just the back line, it's everybody. It's everybody setting that tone to run back. It's everybody setting that tone to cover the spaces, to track the runners, to be able to kind of read the game from the opponent's view so you don't allow them to have those high quality shots. So, yeah, look, if the Galaxy can stay focused in Colorado, obviously we know the altitude's a factor in there for both teams. But the Galaxy really do kind of need to just have that moment where we're like, hey, we can, put 4 on your head. But at the same time, we're going to allow you to kind of just see the ball, pass it around, and not really do any danger with it. And I think if the Galaxy, like we saw in the first game, like you said, Josh, I think you're going to see the Rapids put 1 shot on target at least, right?
Yes.
That felt like an anomaly.
In the first 5 minutes, there will be a shot on target, right? I guaranteed Armas is going to be like, shoot the ball, right? And
yeah, I'm sure he's been grilling his team all week long about that stat, telling him like how embarrassing it is.
Right.
Especially if you're playing at home, you're going to have a little bit of that home field advantage. So yeah, the Galaxy definitely. I don't know if I'm not confident in saying they're going to be like there's going to be a barrage of attacks from the Rapids.
Right.
But they're going to do something different. They're going to provide a different look. They're going to be more aggressive because they have to win this game. So Galaxy's real defensive test is probably here on the road.
Yeah, very well could be. Talking about Greg Vanney, looking about Chris Armas. Looking at that, you wrote a really good article. I loved it. I read that in your newsletter, talking about sort of the undercurrent of this, which is Greg Vanney being passed up for Coach of the Year. Which, by the way, we all know that's stupid, right? We all
Yes.
You can't look at a coach who lost 14 games and who jumped his team 7 spots versus a team who jumped his team 11 spots and lost 8 games or 9 games, whatever it ended up being for the Galaxy, right? You can't put those in equal parts and then seeing what the Galaxy were able to do. I mean, you could. It always feels like everybody's giving Colorado a pass for what they did. Oh, look how good they were, and all this stuff. It's like, no, that's not how this works. It's which coach gave their team the biggest performance. And look at the guys who have been now developed under Greg Vanney this year, like Amiro Garces, like John Nelson, right? I mean, John Nelson is one of the biggest green flags that you can find. Here's a guy who was sort of a backup, right? He talked about not playing the second half of the season for St. Louis because of contract issues, right? The Galaxy, Will Kuntz basically going up there and saying, yeah, we know you haven't been playing, but we know what you can do. Come on down. We want you. And you're talking about a guy now who, if whenever he gets to his next contract, there will be people waiting to get him because now everybody has seen what John Nelson can do. And by the way, played with Dallas, played with there was one more in
Cincinnati.
there. Cincinnati. That's what it was. I couldn't remember he played for Cincinnati, Dallas, Cincinnati, and then with St. Louis, and now with the Galaxy. This is a guy who has already you haven't seen it, but has already earned his next contract because of how well he played this year for the LA Galaxy. People know it now. Look at what Greg Vanney has done in doing this. But talk a little bit about sort of that Armas Galaxy, Armas and Vanney matchup.
Yeah, obviously these two, have some history being U.S. men's national team players together. They know each other pretty well. But look, we know when we talk to Greg Vanney, whether it's on or off the record, like you can see that competitive spirit in Greg. He's a guy who's fired up to win, who's fired up to, show that the Galaxy need to get the respect back. That's been obviously one of his main goals since he took over in 2021. And I think a lot of people, and you've talked about it on this show for sure, Josh, that East Coast bias, where the LA Galaxy definitely should be getting a lot more praises. Greg Vanney should be getting a lot more praises. Even the players, like we talked about, like you meant, right? John Nelson,
yep.
So good. Best bang for your buck signing in free agency for sure. We have players like Daniel Village, who I think should be getting more attention for bouncing back from a truly terrible season last year, where he definitely looked like he was on the way out. But now he's the centerpiece of the attack. But, I know Greg is definitely fired up for this matchup, knowing that, for a while he was the hot shot, the next guy up with Toronto, having rebuilt that team completely, built their identity, comes to LA Galaxy, has a couple of mediocre years. People kind of, forget about him and the quality he has as a coach. You can talk to any player that, on the LA Galaxy right now, and they'll tell you how much of a tactics nerd, how detail-oriented Greg Vanney is, how he looks for every possible way to lead his team to gain a tactical advantage in matches, the way he's been able to kind of salvage points, right? We've seen it a lot this year where he makes changes that lead to the Galaxy getting, picking up wins, picking up a draw when it looked like they might get a loss. And I think Greg Vanney's definitely fired up to show that he's still that guy. He's still one of the best coaches in MLS. As much as the LA Galaxy want to get their respect back across the league, so does Greg Vanney. And I think that motivation in him is there to lead this LA Galaxy team to glory. And I think if you can do that over a coach of the year finalist in round one, basically sweep them, I think that's going to feel real good for Greg heading into the next round.
Yeah, we're watching the Dodger game here, 7-6 for the Dodgers right now. Man on first and second. I think there's one out in the top of the ninth. So Yankees changing pitchers right now. So very close here. Basically, Dodgers 3 outs away from winning a World Series. So I'm sure. I almost don't want to be on the podcast. I like to hear the noise outside whenever something like that happens.
The fireworks goes out. You hear people cheering.
Yep, 100%.
Outside.
Yep.
The vibes are good. Like I think I was earlier at Buffalo Wild Wings watching one of the playoff games against the Padres. And
right.
I think it was the Game 5 one, and it's always good to kind of see everybody united. That's the thing we were talking about earlier, right? There's something in the air where everyone's just so united, where everyone's kind of just has a good spirit going. You would have no idea it's an election year. Elections in in a month. It's the most polarizing time of the year. Yet right. Everyone in LA is united right now for the Dodgers.
Yeah, there's an election in a week, and everybody's like, oh, just the Dodgers are playing. Who cares? So keep an eye on that, but. Here's where we get to. The LA Galaxy traveling to Colorado, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. 6:40 is the kickoff officially. You have the Rapids with their backs up against the wall. They have to win this game. Again, a reminder that should this game be tied after 90 minutes, they will go directly to penalty kicks, as we've seen in all of these, and that means that's the unknown for me, is the Galaxy and penalty kicks. It's going to happen in one of these games. You almost always have to survive one on your way to a cup run or anything else that is going on. Do we feel at all confident about the LA Galaxy's penalty kicks? Have we grown in any confidence? Let's put it this way. Marco Royce is going to be one of those guys. So that makes everybody feel better, right? Maybe John Nelson is one of those guys who takes a shot. Now, I don't know. The bottom line is that there's not a whole bunch of guys who you're like, oh, man, I really want them. Maybe Gabriel Pec taking him feels a little bit better now. Ricky Puig is a question mark. Joseph Paintsil,
he's the last guy, right? To be honest. Yeah, I'd want up there. He just seems like a guy who might overthink the situation. But yeah, Zavaleta, I think he's pretty good at the penalty spot. I think his confidence right now is oozing. Honestly, I'm a guy who loves it when a center back takes a penalty. If Martin Casters was healthy, I feel like he's a guy who just roof it in the net,
right?
No matter what. Yoshida, I think. Well, I don't know. I mean, he missed his last penalty for Japan, and they got eliminated in the World Cup. But maybe he might want to take another one to win his first ever club trophy on the route to there. So, it's interesting to think about it because you got to take into account who's going to be subbed off, what changes are going to be made. I feel like Diego Fagundes is a guy who's probably going to be up there to make it. I feel like that he's always one of the guys off the bench. Paintsil or Pec, one of them's going to come off in the game, and they're not going to take a penalty. So it's kind of got to choose who you're going to keep out there.
By the way, shout out to Max. Max says, I'm eating my lunch at work in Japan, and I always listen in on COGJs. Josh, thank you for planning the podcast during my lunch. You're welcome, Max. G's up there. Gary, $5 super chat.
Max.
Max is awesome. That's awesome. I want to go visit Japan, Max. Can I come visit you? Do you have a place for me to stay? I'm always trying to
live show in Japan.
Live show. Let's do it. I'm in 100%. 100%. I'm down. Maybe we get Maya Yoshida to come on the podcast. If we do a podcast in Japan, can we get Maya to come? Maya and Mickey. Yeah, let's see if we can get them on there. Gary, by the way, $5 super chat says, let's all shotgun a Diet Dr. Pepper if the Dodgers win. I try not to keep any of that stuff in my house anymore because I drink them too much. So try to separate the addict from the things that are going to trigger him. So it's off there on the side. But I did get one today at In-N-Out. So I'm still there. But yeah, Max, you're awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Gary. This is really tricky for me, Alex, whenever we look at this game. And I don't know that we have to extend this. Max says, let's do it. So we're in. So let's hop on a plane. We're going to Japan. My wife would be really upset if I went to Japan without her. But, she can be mad. So it's okay. No, one of those things. This game, though, to me, it feels like you said trap game earlier. This feels like a trap game. And this feels like one of those games where it's really tough to back up a 5-0 performance, right? Because there was a part of me at one point was like, hey, don't score any more goals. You're up 3-0. Take 3-0. 4-0, you start to wake them up a little bit and be like, hey, yes, this game is over. Yes, we're gonna give up and quit on this game. But if we do that, we're going to be just more upset and more angry whenever it comes in. And so I feel like Colorado's going to want to prove that they're not as bad as they were. So knowing that Mihalovic, knowing that Bassett will probably play, I'm going to expect them to play. It's like things will have to be broken for them not to play in this particular case. So expect them to play. That could hurt. That could hurt them as much as it helps the Galaxy, right? If they're not 100%, if they play and they know they're not, and this is going to be a physical game, those guys are going to have to try to be physical with injuries. That's really tough to do. So we'll sort of see how that sits there. Who's going to be the hero of this game, though, Alex? There's going to be an LA Galaxy player who's going to be the hero. Is it a Joseph Paintsil who goes and gets a goal and starts to feel it a little bit? And again, you can start to get him going. Things might really open up. Is it an obvious choice like Ricky Puig with his ability to control play in the center, especially where I think Colorado is a little soft right now, certainly with the two guys gone in that middle. Is it a Marco Royce? Where do you see the hero being? Is it John McCarthy standing on his head, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can go a lot of different ways, but for me, I think it's got to be Joseph Paintsil. I mean, when we mentioned it earlier, Josh, all these teams now are game planning for Gabriel Pec. He's the main guy they want to take away. Daniel Velic as well, right? Being the center forward, you're going to have the center backs close to him. Ricky Puig is obviously going to do his thing. I mean, he's so good. Whether you're man marking him, he's going to find a way to wiggle out of there. Whether it's, trying to eliminate him from getting the ball in certain zones, he's going to navigate and manipulate the pitch in his different ways. So, yeah, I think Joseph Paintsil is going to be the guy who is going to have the opportunity to be the difference maker. I mean, we've seen a lot of times this year where Paintsil's been in the opportunity to finish, but it's not been there. Where he's been in the opportunity to make the right decision, but has been executed perfectly. And I think in this game, I mean, Paintsil's motivated. He saw everybody else score their goals, get their limelight, get the attention, right? I think Paintsil's hungry for himself, as any forward should be, to be honest. I mean, they're paid to be selfish in front of goal. I think he's going to be the guy that Colorado might not have as much attention on compared to Pec.
Right. And
I think that's got to be something the LA Galaxy, that's going to be that edge the Galaxy have to get over Colorado if you're going to win on the road.
Well, it'll be an interesting one to see. The LA Galaxy right now, according to D ratings, 33.8% chance to win. Remember, this is on the road. The Galaxy almost have the same chance of winning as Colorado, which is 38.9. So basically 39 to 34% is your difference there. A 27.3% draw. That's where I sort of see this happening, is this draw scenario. I would not be surprised if this one goes to penalty kicks. It might be 1-1. It might be 2-2. It could be a crazy game. If the Galaxy can get ahead early, they can start reminding Colorado of what happened before. So I think if you're the Galaxy, which is typically something that you'll hear from me, is Galaxy get ahead early or make sure that they keep Colorado off the board. Make sure Colorado is not gaining any momentum in this first round. You don't want them to score. You don't want to give them belief. You don't want them thinking they're safe. That being said, there's a very good chance in this game the Galaxy will have to try to come from behind in order to win this game at some point. And that's part of the playoffs. That's part of being an MLS Cup contender, is knowing that you have the ability to score when you are down. That being said, it's going to be, it'll be a little cold. It's going to be at altitude. So the Galaxy are just going to have to. And by the way, they were just there. They know exactly how that feels to get out there, the amount of effort that they're going to have to put in and all those things. And the good news is, at the very least, you have a week to recover again before you come back and have to play that final third game should the Galaxy fall, right? That's the worst case scenario, is you have another game after that, so it's not the end of the world. For Colorado, they don't know that. They're going in there. They might have to clean out their lockers the next day. It's that type of sort of situation for Colorado. So it does get ratcheted up in the second part, in that second leg. Every single one of these games now is a win or go home type situation, and that should make soccer really interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing this match. We're going to see kind of a different side of the LA Galaxy for sure. I think this is going to be a really physical game. I think Colorado is going to want to impose that level of physicality, to Puig, to Pec. We know that obviously do or die game for them. And like I said earlier, I think it's going to be probably like a 1-1, 2-1 maybe kind of game for whoever wins this game. I'm really looking forward kind of to seeing just who, like we talked about earlier, who's going to be that surprise guy. It was John Nelson last game, had a really good game. I want to see him score more goals like that. I feel like he's probably going to try that again one more time. I hope he does.
Yeah, you want to see more of that. Again, the confidence should be flowing for the Galaxy. You just hope that they're not overconfident in all of this. So, if you have to guess, I mean, give me your score prediction and let's figure this out.
All right, I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for the LA Galaxy. I just feel they have the talent advantage over the Rapids. I feel like in the playoffs, where the edges are very fine, the talent advantage is going to be key for the LA Galaxy. Better players, they're in the better momentum, better rhythm. Tactically, I think the Galaxy are just going to find a way to outsmart whatever Chris Armas and the Rapids are going to want to do. I think Joseph Paintsil is going to have a goal. I think Dejan Joveljic is going to have a goal. But I can't see like a scrappy set piece goal given up by the LA Galaxy. I just have a feeling that's going to come back again. So 2-1 LA Galaxy victory. They close out the series and get prepared for the conference semifinals.
Yeah, I'm really am thinking this just feels like one of those like 2-2 games for me. So I think they're going to draw. I think the Galaxy will advance on penalty kicks. I don't think that this game comes back to LA. Listen, the margins, I think you said it. The margins are fine enough. I'm not going to be surprised if it does. That's just how these best of 3 goes. The 5-0 means nothing anymore. They're going to throw that out. The Colorado Rapids know that they have to win the game. It's really simple for them. I just don't know what else they're going to be able to do and how they're going to be able to do it. It doesn't seem like they have. It's not like, and I think you pointed out, the quality of the LA Galaxy is better than the quality of the Colorado Rapids. That's not being, I don't think that's being a homerish thing to say. It is just obvious.
Look at the number, look at the stats.
Look at the stats. The stats tell you that. I mean, just by where they finish, second and seventh. That means something. And we know that the Western Conference wasn't exactly a juggernaut. It's top heavy, right? And as far as what I think it's very top heavy when you figure it's probably LAFC and the Galaxy and then everybody else. In terms of how that is, maybe RSL. Yes, we are watching with 1 out in the 9th inning, the bottom of the 9th now. So I'm actually trying to make sure that 2 outs now. 2 outs now in the bottom of the 9th. So the Yankees down to their final out. I'm trying to make sure that if this finishes right now, that we have it in the podcast. Otherwise, it's like this open-ended thing. Everybody will know what it is already, but I feel like the podcast will be. I feel
like, if you're listening, you kind of want to know like how we react to it.
Right.
You're like, oh, how did Josh, did he scream?
Well,
what about Alex? Did he start crying on camera?
Did he start?
Like, what happened?
You don't want to be that guy, right? So you don't want to end it and be like, oh, well, what happened? Like maybe you're in Japan eating lunch and you're not watching. I mean, everybody in Japan's watching this.
Yeah, Shohei is huge.
Yeah, that's not happening. Max, is everybody in Japan watching these games?
There's got to be at least a TV in the break room or something, or a radio playing the game. There's got
to be something. There we go. So we're getting close. But no, when you look at the Galaxy, they are head and shoulders above Colorado. Does that mean that they're going to win? This is the only time, Alex, by the way. This is it. This is the only time where you can sit there and say that the Galaxy can have a bad game and they won't be done.
There we go.
It's done.
They won a World Series.
I'm a little bit behind.
Won a World Series.
Dodger. Here it is. I'm waiting for mine. I'm still like 10 seconds away. I can tell. I'm almost there. So I will give it to you whenever I see it. Walker Buehler is taking a pitch, and there it was. Strike 3. Dodgers win a World Series. There you go. So LA, World Series champions. The Dodgers. That means something. I'm telling you right now, that means something in the city of Los Angeles. Not just because this is a Galaxy podcast. I'm telling you, these things happen. Like there's momentum to these things. There's gravity to these things. Maybe that means that LAFC are going to be taking over, and they also feel this. I think it works for both of the teams. But there's a gravity to this, and the fact that you can see quote unquote your hometown team do it on the biggest stage means that now the Galaxy maybe also have that belief, right? And I'm not saying they didn't have that belief, but they're watching this happen. There's no games on tonight. They watch this happen. Everybody, they may be watching it together. Sometimes that happens too, but that is that's something that happens in here. So Dodgers World Series champions, the LA Galaxy getting ready to face Colorado. The quality is there for the Galaxy to bring it back. What do you do you think this has any effect? A World Series in Los Angeles on the Galaxy? It's like peripheral, but it's there, right?
Yeah, it's there. Like I mentioned, right? The groove and the vibe in the city is like off the charts with whenever the Dodgers or the Lakers are doing very good, right? I think Greg Vanney is going to be texting the entire group chat right now. It's like, why can't this be us?
Right.
Why can't this be us? We like the Dodgers did this season, right? Investing in Shohei Ohtani, investing in Yoshi Yamamoto, right? The Galaxy invested in Gabriel Pec. And Joseph Paintsil. You had unsung heroes, right? Teoscar Hernandez, guys that came in the offseason. The trades in the middle of the year for Jack Flaherty when their pitching depth was really bad, right? Being able to add a Marco Ruiz to a team that's already super stacked. So there's a lot of similarity if you want to take a look. I'm just making this all up on the fly right now, but I feel if, we take an in-depth look, there's a lot of similarities between the Dodgers and the LA Galaxy. Both historic franchises, both teams that, want to get on top of things. I personally, and this is me, I don't count 2020 championships. I don't. They're Mickey Mouse trophies to me. Yes. So this is like a genuine MLB championship for the Dodgers. I think the Galaxy, they want to be able to have their legit MLS Cup when they're sixth, be that historic franchise again. Whether it's, going to Miami and beating them, I think that's what it's going to take, right? Like the Dodgers, they went to Yankee Stadium and beat them there. So I feel like there's no better feeling if you're a Dodgers fan or a player than beating the Yankees at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, it's an interesting take on all this. Just sort of watch that happen. And championships in Los Angeles, nothing new, but certainly a welcome sight. I heard there's fireworks going on. So all the fun stuff's going on out there. So everybody be safe while it is. Here it is. The LA Galaxy facing off against Colorado Rapids coming up on Friday. That game's 6:30 Pacific time. It will be on MLS Season Pass. So that's where you can watch it like always. This game will kick off at 6:40 p.m. So be ready for that. So you're going to be done with work, getting home on Friday. You're going to settle in. You're going to those watch parties. You're doing everything that you need to do for the Galaxy. This is a really important game, I think, for the Galaxy's psyche to not have to, one, they don't have to worry about going home, right? But they want to get this done. Greg Vanney already talked about it. We've said, hey, if you win this game on Friday, you then have like 3 weeks off, like 22 days, right? It's some ridiculous number, 22 days off. Nobody wants 22 days off. It's stupid. That being said, you don't want to put yourself in a win or die situation yet. You're going to get to do that in the next round for sure, but you're going to be at home whenever you do it. So this is the chance for the Galaxy, who have not been a good road team, but recently beat the Rapids at home, beat the Rapids on the road, right? So they have that ability to do that. This is it, Alex. This is where you prove to, quite honestly, to me, if you go out here, you put together a nice workman-like performance, you weather the storm that Colorado's going to give you, weather the physicality, you don't lose your head. That's the other thing. Towards the end of this game, if the Galaxy are winning, there's going to be a red card. And the Galaxy need to make sure it's not on them. It has to be smarter than that. This is like one of those times where you can stick up for your guys, but don't be the guy who pushes. Don't be the guy who shoves. Although certainly in the Galaxy's first game against Colorado Rapids, apparently you can take a running start, two-hand shove somebody, push them like 4 or 5 feet across the field, and it's still not a yellow card for some crazy reason. So VAR also is like, let them kick each other. It's one of those. So everything ratchets up here. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, just like you mentioned, Josh, right? That 5-0 win, that's not going to happen again.
Nope.
Not going to happen again for the rest of the playoffs for the LA Galaxy. So you try not to, rest your hopes on that being the story again. It's going to be these fine margins like the MLS playoffs always are. Right. It's going to be about keeping your head in the game, not getting too desperate. I mean, look, obviously it's, and from your criteria, it's, obviously a must-win game, but, you're not facing elimination here. You also got to think if the situation gets bad, how are you going to manage this? But like I said, I'm confident the LA Galaxy with their talent advantage, with the way that they just looked against the Rapids, both at home last week and a couple of weeks ago over there at Colorado. I think the Galaxy had the momentum in their favor, and I think they're going to be able to close it out.
All right, there we go. LA Galaxy, Colorado Rapids coming up on Friday. This game is a big game. Friday, November 1st, 6:30 p.m., 6:40 p.m. is your kickoff time on MLS Season Pass. Let's see. Anything else, Alex? Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
All good. I mean, just going to go enjoy the Dodger victory outside right now. Fireworks are going off. I don't know if you can hear them.
I did hear that. And that was the first one.
That one was actually right near me, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey man, Alex is gonna go crazy tonight.
That's how. Not the night before Halloween, right? That's how it is. How many Dodgers? How many people dress up as Dodgers tomorrow? That's what I want to know. So
yeah, that's gonna be. Everyone's gonna go to school in their jerseys. Everyone's gonna be repping the Dodgers tomorrow.
Yeah, of course, always there. All right, Alex, tell people where they can find you, and we will get on out of here.
Yes, you can find my newsletter, The Galactic Tribune, just chronicling and putting up stories about the current LA Galaxy playoff run at thegalactictribune.org. You can also follow me on X/Twitter at ALXRuiz15.
All right, if you're looking for me on Twitter next, at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast, cornerthegalaxy.com, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, iTunes, all those places where you can find our podcast. Go tell your friends. Hopefully you enjoy the little special playoff edition Wednesday night before Halloween. If you're going out for Halloween, be safe, be careful, enjoy your family time. Hope everybody has a wonderful time and enjoy that World Series Los Angeles. All right, for Mr. Alex El Nino Ruiz, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening. You've been watching to our little Corner of the Galaxy. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.